What's up guys, Darkdally here playing Ghost Recon Wildlands, and today I want to do a comparison between the M4 and the M16. Now the M16 just recently came out with the Predator Ghost Pack, and a lot of people are really curious about how good it is, largely because the pack is a little bit pricey, but a lot of people want this weapon or want the pack for other reasons and are curious before they drop that $20 or so for all of those goodies. Is the M16 comparable to the other guns in Ghost Recon? And I think the best one to compare it to really is the M4. The M4A1 is definitely one of the most favored assault rifles in the game, so I like to see how it stacks up against its Cold War era counterpart, the M16. I think these are two good rifles to compare against one another. I like to compare these across several different metrics, such as accuracy factors like recoil, how much the reticle spreads when you aim, how fast the reload speed, fire rate. But first, let's look at the stats. Let's just have a look at the stats straight across. First, let's make sure both weapons are completely stock, because I've been kind of testing with them a little bit. I've been messing with the parts. So let's go ahead and set the parts back to stock on each of these, and we'll just compare the bars. And then there's one thing there that I actually want to look at, because when you reset the parts, well, we'll get to that. So let's compare the M16. So the M16 is the one that's currently selected. Let's go ahead and highlight the M4A1. So completely stock, it's showing the M16 actually does more damage. Well, you can see here, but it's showing the M4A1 with higher accuracy, handling, and rate of fire. Now, there is one thing I want to note here, though. When we look at the M16, by default, it has a grenade launcher attached. Well, maybe that's not a fair comparison because the M4 doesn't have one, and we know that's going to change the stats. So let's go ahead to the underbarrel. Let's take the UGL off. Just put on the rail cover. Now let's compare the stats, and we'll see. This might give us a better thing here. Okay, as I figured, that was going to change the handling. It did change the handling a little bit. So here what we see is actually a pretty even comparison, although I am curious that it's showing the M16 to do more damage. Okay, one thing we can easily test right here, right now, I don't even have to do any special editing for this, is the rate of fire. The rate of fire is noticeably different. If we fire the M16 and then switch right over to the M4, noticeably different, that is. So one thing I want to compare, which we can do right here just as is with them completely stock, is the reticle spread. Now, I believe that reticle spread, which is the accuracy when you move your crosshair. Of course, my crosshair is turned off. I just realized that I do believe that to change with handling alterations to the weapon, but we're just going to do that stock one against the other and see what it is. It's something I found miniguns do have different spread there. The best way to do that is actually to go back to my HUD and turn the crosshair back on. And the reason is I could measure that by the spread of the bullets in the wall, but that'd be incredibly hard. The easiest way is just to look to see how the crosshair spreads when you aim. Notice that we're going to have to do it in third person to get the effect of the crosshair. Notice that when we move, see how the crosshair spreads out a little bit. I just want to see, well, what is the maximum spread for both of these weapons? Both stock with standard factory parts here. Let's see. So with the M16, we're getting this right here. And with the M4, we're getting, I'm not sure, but that actually looks like less. Let's compare these side by side. Okay, so that's one thing that I want to compare, and I won't see that until editing. I won't see the real difference, and it's going to be the same with the reload speed. I want to go ahead and just check the reload speed real quick here. Let's test it with 30-round mags. Now, as far as I know, I've said differently in previous videos, but as far as I know, the only thing that's going to affect reload speed is the size of the magazine. It's something I've come to learn. I do believe that to be true, because many of you pointed that out, and I believe you're right. So, let's go ahead and empty these mags and just test the reload speed now that I have my reload icon back up. So the M4A1, they really feel about the same, but let's see. Well, again, I will put this side by side in editing, and then we'll find out there. All right, let's move on to the other test I wanted to do. I want to test some recoil-related things with these. I want to see which is the most accurate. We're also going to be testing bullet drop. Now, this will be a two-part series, I didn't mention that at the beginning. This will be a two-part series most likely because I also want to compare them in combat effectiveness, and I just don't want to take up too much of your time today doing that. Okay, so now to compare recoil, which is one thing I want to do with these rifles. We want to modify the rifles to have the best recoil they can. Now generally what I do is I shoot at a wall from a set distance. Something like this is easy to do because I can stand right at this gate, I can stand right at this fence right here and be a set distance from that wall. This allows me to change parts, weapons, move around, come back, and I'm always at the same distance from the wall. And it allows me to shoot a group at the wall and see how the recoil is improved. Now the parts that improve recoil are going to be things that allow length, stability, weight, and your grip on the weapon. Extended buttstocks help with recoil. I've said this in videos before and I will have future videos on it. Extended buttstocks, the V4 foregrip is going to be the best modification that you can have for recoil. The shortest barrel you can have, and a compensator. I have some other attachments on here, but they're not going to make any difference here. The only things that affect recoil from all my testing are these things: buttstock, underbarrel attachment, barrel length, and compensator. Or, I'm sorry, barrel attachment, you know. Just like with bullet drop, only the rangefinder and the barrel made a difference. Here, it's these four things. There are other things, you know, like for instance, a grenade launcher is good for recoil, really good actually. So is a suppressor, but a V4 foregrip and a compensator are better. So using these parts on both weapons, let's see what their recoil is going to be like. Just here on this wall, I'll just stand up and do it. You do want to do this in first person. Let's just do this real quick. I have a feeling with what we've seen so far that these rifles are going to have about the same bullet grouping. That's what I'm really thinking. This is showing the M16 bullet group started a little lower. That's one thing that's kind of hard to manage. It seems to me like, just from aiming these, just from testing these that I have, it seems like the M16 shoots a little different than the M4. Well, let's test this real quick as a side thing. Let's fire one shot with the M16. Let's swap to the M4 and fire one shot. Let's look at this again. Do you see the difference here? The M16 seems to shoot low. The M16 does shoot low. That's just that, yeah, that's not me. The M16 shoots lower. Let's grab a different optic here. Okay, this is something different. This is something different I didn't expect to test. Their shot grouping on the wall, the recoil pattern is the same. It's going to be random every time, but you could see they were close enough. You can say these are the same, except I noticed the M16 started lower. And then now we're seeing this. So let's have a look at the digital scope on these. Let's try different optics. This is one I like to use for testing because it has the most precise crosshair. So let's pull up this digital scope because I want to see this precisely. Is the M16 shooting low? Or is it just the iron sights? No, it's shooting fine with this. Let's go back down to the iron sights. Let's shoot something from farther away, which will give us a small bullet hole. Yeah, the M16 shoots low. Wow, look at that. Okay, so here's something I did not expect to find in the comparison. Again, I'll fire a shot at the wall. Now when I move, I'm just going to move my scope over to the side, and you see where the bullet hole appears. That's not how these guns shoot. So, but it was shooting right on with the digital scope, which is good because future tests I have with it will be with the digital scope. It was shooting right on with that. Where it's off is with its iron sights. Its iron sights are off. Now that's unexpected, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to fire the M16 with its iron sights because it has the look of the rear sight assembly, which some call the carry handle. I'm not a fan of that term personally. Yeah, see, the M4A1 shot right where it should. Right at the top of the iron sight. But when we switch to the M16, this is the first time I'm seeing this. Alright, so that's going to give us something to take into consideration. But again, when we swap to the scopes, you saw that it shot right on with the scope. So this is something I may have to address later. Now, what does this mean? Well, it doesn't mean anything. It's just something with the iron sights. Okay, and so now I want to have a look at the bullet drop between the M16 and M4. Now, I've already done the M4 in my assault rifle bullet drop series, and I will be adding the M16 to that series. If you're not familiar with that, I'll have a link to that series in the description below. I just want to test them both fully modified right here. I don't want to go like through all the paces and everything. I've got them both set up for a maximum accuracy as far as bullet drop goes, meaning they have the longest barrels they can and a rangefinder. And they're both using the same optics. That won't affect bullet drop, but just to be fair, I'll be looking at the target the exact same way. Now, the M4 can take a long barrel, and the M16 can only use its standard barrel. So we're going to do the same thing we do in the assault rifle bullet drop series, which is shoot this target at 250 meters, just compare them straight across. The M4 will probably have less bullet drop because it can take a longer barrel, but I don't know, and that's precisely why I want to test this. Okay, so there is the shot from the M16. So the M16 hit right at the bottom. Let's go ahead and swap to the M4. Okay, and there is our shot with the M4. Let's go check this out because I'm really curious to know which of the two has the least bullet drop. The M4 by quite a margin. And quite frankly, well, not surprisingly, that's the margin that the long barrel adds. So what I'm saying is the M16 and the M4 look to have the same stock bullet drop. And we can actually go ahead and confirm that right now. It's the addition of that long barrel that makes the M4 have less bullet drop. Let's go ahead and let's just reset all parts to stock. I call that the same place. If one of those is a little more to the right than the other, but if we were to overlap those, they would be within, you know, about an inch of one another. So there we have it. They really have about the same bullet drop, but you can get more accuracy in that respect out of the M4 because it can take a longer barrel. All right, guys. So let's summarize everything that we've learned here. Now, first, yeah, I want to say why am I here? The second part of the video we're going to do out here, and I have not done this part yet. I just came out here so that I can log my character off here. We're going to be testing out here. The second part of the video is going to be combat effectiveness, and I found this is a great place to test this here at Kawani because I can stop a convoy about 400 meters down that road pretty reliably and take prone shots and really test a weapon's damage over range, things like that. And also engagement because the guys will also sometimes run at it, or invariably they will always run at us, and we get to test a little bit of combat effectiveness as well. Now today's testing, I believe I'm on advanced difficulty right now. I don't really pay much attention because that does not affect bullet physics. However, tomorrow when we do the combat effectiveness test, it will be on extreme because I know that's how you guys are going to want to see it. You're going to want to see it either on extreme or in tier mode. So it will be one of those two difficulties where we test the damage. So let's sum up what we've seen today. So at close range, the rifles really seem to have about the same recoil when dumping the entire magazine. Again, remember that most of that recoil comes from the first half of your mag dump, really. And that is not relative to the size. Meaning, if you're running a 20-round magazine, those first 10 rounds are going to kick you back just as much as if you're running a 50-round. So keep that in mind. Now, I also looked at reload and the accuracy while aiming, and I can say from now it looked really close. You guys will have seen that comparison already in the editing. I will have put that in there. As far as the bullet drop, we see that they actually technically both have the same bullet drop, but because we cannot put a long barrel on the M16, the M4 does win out there. So take that into consideration. Now remember when we looked at the stats, we've got a few parts on the rifles now. Let's just go ahead and compare them. They do have the same, I mean, they got parts on them, but they've got the same parts on them. So let's go ahead and looking at these stats again, we can see that the stats are showing them pretty darn equal, but not exactly equal. So some of it's going to be preference, some of it's going to be aesthetics, but I imagine most of you want to see what I want to see, which is what we're going to test out here tomorrow, and that's going to be combat effectiveness. Wow, look, this is the convoy right there, but we just don't have time for that. Oh, it's so tempting. There's the convoy right there. We don't have time for it, but that's what we're going to do next time. I'm going to get on top of this roof. I'm going to use probably a large caliber sniper rifle, stop the convoy right at exactly 400 meters, 300 to 400, depending. I think 300 is probably in better engagement for a assault rifle. we'll see. We'll see how it works out. We'll stop it exactly right out there. We'll check that out next time. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to tell me what you think in the comments below and which one of these assault rifles you like using better. Or if you don't have the M16, other questions you may have about it, things you may want to see me test to help you make that decision of whether or not it's worth getting the Predator Ghost Pack to get the M16. Alright guys, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a real pleasure. I'm Darkdally. I will see you guys next time.